Hello, everybody, and welcome to the start of a new Let's Play. I am going to be playing this fantastic indie gem called Firewatch. If you haven't had a chance to play it, you've probably heard of it. This has incredibly high ratings. People have very good things to say about it, and for good reason. This is a walking simulator point and click type of a situation, but I find that this one is a little more interactive than some others in the genre, and it has an excellent story. The writing in this is very good, the voice acting, and the overall growth of our characters, the changes that they go through, and the story also just kind of takes an unexpected turn. So everything about this game is enjoyable. It's beautiful to look at. It's got excellent music. And it's not a very long game, so it's not going to take us a long time to really get through. We can just enjoy the ride. And this game can be as long or short as you want it to be because there are so many things that you can interact with. There's a ton of flavor in this game. It's really just excellent all around. Most of this game is voiced, but the beginning introduction sequence is not. So we're going to get some background into the story of our main character and what led him to where he is in his life in the present. So all of that will need to be read aloud. So this first part is going to be kind of me telling you a story. I'm going to read everything aloud, and we probably won't get into any actual gameplay until part 2. So just relax, listen to my voice, and we will get a little bit of story here to set things off. We begin in Boulder, Colorado in the year 1975. We see Julia. She's about your age, late 20s, laughing with well-dressed professors and grad students from nearby CU Boulder. You, Henry, are out drinking with your pals. We approach her. You are drunk. Let's ask her about her major. You slur the word major and it smells like crores. You give an awkward smile. Evolutionary biology, she says, and I'm a professor. Cool, you reply. What's yours? She asks. She sniffs the air. Toxicology? Was that a burn, you ask? She says definitely. Worried she hurt your feelings, she asks you if you want to split a cheeseburger, and 1 week later you are Julia's boyfriend. And then this is the present day. We are going to have a few little transitions between the past as we tell Henry's story and what he's doing in the present day. So we're going to load our pack into our truck and take off. You date for over a year. She drives you absolutely nuts, and it's great. You move in. You share an apartment near the school with a view of the mountains. You two drink beers out on the deck. You drink beer just about anywhere. Life is good. Julia wants to get a dog. There's a scruffy, undersized beagle. Julia is in love. She wants to bring it with her to class. There's also an intimidating but gentle-eyed German Shepherd. Nothing bad could happen to Julia while walking this dog. It is badass. I normally go with the Shepherd, so just to change things up a little bit, let's go ahead and get the beagle for Julia since she loves him so much. And she's going to name him Bucket. Bucket's a good dog, and a week later you've totally forgotten about the other one. Julia loves him, and you love him too. 1979, 4 years later from where we started, we're talking out on the deck. It's summer, 9:30 p.m., and the heat still radiates off of the high desert. What do you think about kids? She asks. Kids? Well, they're not very smart or good at much. I'm saying if you and I have some, a couple of little idiots. I'm not a fan of children, so I'm gonna sort of put her off, even though I think this is probably something you should talk about before you get into a relationship. She looks away out towards the mountains. We have plenty of time, right? Speak for yourself, mister. Don't worry, you assure her. You tell her that she has the body of an undergrad. My ovaries didn't get the memo, she says, laughing it off. I mean, at this point, she's probably not even 30 years old, so she does have time. She was in her mid-20s when we met her, and this is about 4 years later. 6 months later, you are engaged, lying in bed on a Sunday morning. That's beautiful. You don't even need to see Julia or know what she looks like or know anything about her just to feel that beautiful, relationship that those two have. We've made it to the thoroughfare trailhead, so we've got quite a bit of a hike ahead of us. And this map on the board is actually going to be a map that we get for ourselves as well. This is going to be our in-game map. So that will come later. Henry's going to start his hike. A year later, in 1980, it's a Thursday night and Julia is 4 hours late. She doesn't call. You're worried and getting angrier by the minute. She walks in after you've gone to bed. She's not quite drunk, but she's clearly been having a fun time. You fight when she gets between the sheets. I guess we'll just ignore her. You don't touch each other all night. The next day you feel guilty for being so angry and ask her about her evening. She says it was great. You hold on to a tiny pill of resentment, but you make some coffee and go to work. In 1981, Julia still enjoys drawing. She draws plants from her research. She draws all the places that you go, and she draws you. You will actually get to see this drawing. So I always pick the Victoria's Secret model pose because I think that's much funnier. These choices don't have incredibly dire consequences, but they do change dialogue later on in the game. So all of these things will come up later on as we play. You can see now that Henry is still hiking into the afternoon, the late afternoon. Julia enjoy walking Bucket at night. There's a festival in town. It brings in folks from faraway places, but one of them tries to mug you with a knife. Bucket gets kicked. Oh, that's horrible. Julia yells. She gets flustered and has trouble speaking when she's stressed. You confront the attacker. I probably don't want to scare her any more than she's already afraid, so we're going to try and scare him away rather than beat him up. You reach into your pocket like you've got a gun and threaten to kill him. You manage to scare all three of you, and he runs away. Julia asks to take a different path from that day forward. You say okay. You don't want to go that way either. From then on, you walk by the river. That would be terrifying to go through. In 1984, your plans to have kids get waylaid by work. She gets offered a job at Yale. Yale is in Connecticut, 2,000 miles away. It's a great job, associate department chair. She wants you to move. You absolutely do not. I think it's important to try to compromise a little bit, and it sounds like it's a dream job for her, so maybe she can commute. You ask her if she'll commute back and forth. You don't want to move to Connecticut. She says that'll be hard, but she'll do it if you won't move. You tell her not to pass it up if that's what she really wants. She agrees, and she flies back to Boulder 3 times each semester. I've been to Connecticut, by the way. It is beautiful. In 1985, a year later, Julia is sent home from Yale on paid leave after having an episode. She lost it on a colleague for borrowing books that were important to her research. She didn't remember she had happily loaned them to him just 2 days prior. She was found crying in the stairwell. I think we really need to talk to somebody about that, rather than put it off. After seeing multiple doctors and having many tests, they are worried that Julia might be suffering from early onset dementia. She's only 41. Absolutely, heartbreakingly devastating. You both try to keep it a secret for now. At this point, we're just taking a little breather here, and if you open up the journal, you'll see the drawing that Julia has done of you. So you'll either be in the Victoria's Secret pose or the He-Man pose. Bucket is getting older, and Julia comments that it's kind of nice because he gets in less trouble around the house. A week later, she goes back to the university. In 1987, Julia's affliction gets worse. She can't remember things in class. Her research is in shambles. She drives her car to the next town over for no particular reason and has to be brought home by the police. She is devastated. She is sent home on permanent medical leave. It sounds like she has a very, very fast progressing, aggressive version of dementia. Some days you get the Julia who calls you a dope and your unborn children little idiots, and other days you get a stranger. She pulls you into bed to make love, but after 5 minutes she goes into a panic, believing her dad is at the door. You tell her family they are crushed and begin to make trips to and from their home in Australia to visit her. For a while, your friends come by with little things to brighten the day, but she only gets worse. A year later, in 1988, you're spending your days following Julia around the house. You count the seconds between the 2 weekly visits from Daniel, the nurse. He suggests that Julia could live somewhere else, somewhere with 24-hour care, a home. It sits with you for a couple of months. This is always an incredibly difficult decision for people to make. I see this in my line of work all the time, and it never gets any easier. Both choices are difficult, and it's kind of hard to say what's the right choice. You just need to do what's right for you. I feel like Henry is the kind of guy that would try and take care of her by himself for as long as he possibly could. But I also think with only 2 weekly visits, she probably needs to go into care if it's this vastly progressing. So of course we're still walking along here in the beautiful wilderness. Slowly but surely making our way through on our hike. Her family agrees with your decision. You find a fantastic place in Boulder and move her there. You see her every day, and then every other day. You go out to the bar with your old friends. It's not the same. You get the feeling that every wife tells her husband, if you ever put me in a home like Henry did, I will cut your balls off. You slowly decide to not see your old friends that much. Julia's sister Susan moves to Boulder to be close to her. She visits her every day. You go with her some of the time. Susan buys you an old typewriter and urges you to use it if you won't see a therapist. You won't. You've always really liked Susan. Months go by and Bucket dies. Julia doesn't remember him when you tell her. Sometimes it takes her a minute to lock in on you. In the back of your mind, you believe it's because you see her less and less. And seeing her less and less makes you forget you more, you think. Summer is coming and you see an ad in the paper for a job. Also, that is completely not true, and if that ever happens to you in real life, do not torture yourself over it. So obviously Henry takes the job. There's just too much going on at home for him, and this is where we find ourselves currently. People with dementia and Alzheimer's just have better long-term memory. I'm sure Henry and many people in Henry's situation feel tortured when they don't feel like they're doing enough, but that's why facilities exist. They are not a bad thing, and Henry did not make a horrible choice. He's not a horrible person, and Julia has her sister to look after her, which is why we're here. This is going to be our new home.
Hello, Two Forks Tower.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
So, what's wrong with you?
Excuse me?
People take this job to get away from something. So, what's wrong?
What's wrong with you?
That's a great idea. Go ahead.
Look, I just hiked for 2 days, so I don't really follow whatever it is you're doing right now.
You take a stab at what's wrong with me.
Fine, then can I sleep forever?
Sure, buddy. Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, you've killed 3 husbands. You're a black widow and you're just out here until the heat dies down and then you'll kill again.
Ooh, very good. Bravo, Henry.
Okay, I sleep now?
Not quite. Now you.
Okay, good night, bye.
Let's see. I don't know anything about you. I say you got fired from your job and have finally decided to write your novel. That's the sort of bullshit reason you'll find a man out in the woods.
Good night.
Welcome to the job.
And that's the end of the introduction. We now start our job fresh on day 1. And you can see Henry decided to bring his typewriter
Morning, Henry.
up.
Well, I guess good afternoon. You probably slept like a rock. Anyway, there's still a few hours of daylight to get some work in. I can see you at your desk, so call me when you're ready.
Okay, so we have no choice but to pick up the radio at this point and speak to Delilah again.
Hey, sorry, guess I slept in.
You got a relaxing, 14 hours of sleep? Woo!
Yeah, Jesus, I guess it's what, 6?
6:45.
Whoops.
Don't worry about it. That hike puts everyone out of commission for a day or two. But now that you're up, let me quickly get you acquainted with the job. There's a thing in the middle of your room with a round map on it. Do you see it?
Okay, yeah, I see it.
This is the Osborne Firefinder, invented in 1914 by W.B.
Osborne?
You use this to spot, you guessed it, What the fuck?
What is it?
Nothing. You use this to... Oh, fuck me!
Good God, language, lady.
Out your west-facing window. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Alright, so we get ourselves a compass.
Are those fucking fireworks?
And we definitely see the fireworks.
Whoa, that's not legal, right?
No. You need to get down there right now and stop them. Fire danger is through the fucking roof.
Is that really my job?
Your job is whatever I say it is. Look, the closest ranger is like 2 days away. Go down there and set him straight.
Like, kick the shit out of him sort of straight?
No. Jesus, no.
What? I'm not a cop. It's not like I've got a rule book over here.
Just make sure they don't do it again. Take their shit.
All right, fine.
Don't feed anyone a knuckle sandwich. Get going. You'll probably need a rope to get down the shale between you and the lake, if I remember right. There should be one in the supply box on the way. The code is 1234. It's actually that for all of them.
Smart.
Shut up.
Alright, so there we are. We're finally done talking to Delilah. We are going to be talking to her a lot. She is going to be the one to keep us company. She's sort of like our boss, and there is some excellent dialogue between her and Henry, very amusing, and obviously it's nice to have a little bit of company out here in the wilderness. I'm going to stop here and take a little bit of a breather now that we have just a little bit of time to stop and take in our surroundings. I'll go over a little bit more things like our objectives, some of the controls, and we'll just kind of have a look around our environment. Now that we can actually get into a little bit of gameplay here, we can move around and kind of get started with our first day's objectives. I do apologize that this first video was mostly just a lot of reading, not a lot of action, but bear with me because this game does get better. There is going to be more gameplay now from this point on. It's not something that you'll want to miss. It just gets better and better as each passing day goes on. So thank you also very much for joining me for the beginning of Firewatch. I hope that you want to stay and continue on in the adventure. And if you do, then I will be seeing you all next time.